Welcome to Gutter. This is Will Sanchez. My special guest tonight is Dirk Whitebreast. He is a Native American with the Meskwaki Nation. I first heard about Dirk 4 years ago when I had Shailene Raphaelite as a guest. She told us about the challenge that Dirk faced.
Well, I learned about Dirk through Josie and my sister. She went out for one of his marathons to help support him, and he did 10 marathons in 30 days. He had a sister who had committed suicide and wanted to raise awareness about prevention in Indian country.
I'm thrilled to have Dirk as a guest.
Hi, happy to be here with you.
Before we go into that challenge you did back in, I think, 2011, the 10 marathons in 30 days to honor your sister, let's first learn a little bit about you. Tell us where you were born, a little bit about growing up.
So I'm a member of the Sac and Fox Tribe of the Mississippi and Iowa, also known as the Meskwaki Nation. We refer to ourselves as the Red Earth people. I come from Tama, Iowa.
As a child, were you very active?
Actually, no. I was not very active throughout my high school years. Throughout my adolescence, I wasn't very physically active. I think it would be safe to say that I was fairly unhealthy.
Were you raised on a reservation?
Actually, the Meskwaki settlement is where I was raised. This is actually our own land. Mm-hmm. This was purchased by our ancestors, and so it's unique to Indian country. You know, it's not something that was allotted to us.
I was happy to be reading Wikipedia, and you seem to have a very famous ancestor. Jim Thorpe is from that tribe?
Actually, he's from Sac and Fox of Oklahoma. That's a different band of Sac and Fox.
Well, there you go. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But you studied Jim Thorpe when he was a kid?
I'm well aware of his story and his history, and I think it's something to be revered and respected, definitely.
Right. I didn't realize that he was nominated as the best athlete in the 20th century. Mm-hmm. What a great honor.
Definitely.
So how did you learn about him?
Fact of the matter is, you know, there are very few people that we may see as heroes, and so when there is that one, you know, especially somebody like a Jim Thorpe, we all take pride in that. It's not just a Sac and Fox of Oklahoma thing, it's an Indian country thing. Mm-hmm. And so we acknowledge that and respect that, you know, their goals and their contributions to our people.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned other heroes besides Billy Mills. Any others that come to mind?
Emmett Eastman, he's a Dakota man, and I believe that he's in his 70s right now. The story that I know of Emmett Eastman is that he didn't start running until he was 40 years old. And I met him a few years back and introduced myself as a runner, you know, and we had a small conversation about running. And for some reason, I got the courage to ask him how many marathons that he had run. And he looked me dead in the eye, you know, full confidence, and he said thousands. And that determination, you know, that strength, you know, and at this point, he's an elderly man. I had seen him around here and there, but I never knew of him as a runner. And so, yeah, he's definitely somebody that I consider a hero to me.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that in high school you were non-athletic. So why was that? Were you just into your studies?
Actually, I was I would probably consider myself to be an addict, you know, at an early age. Possibly from the age of, you know, 12, 13, all through my high school years. I was very non-athletic. I was not healthy at all.
Alcohol?
Hard drugs.
Hard drugs?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And so I really didn't take care of myself, mm-hmm. Really didn't understand the path that I was taking. Mm-hmm. And that lasted for quite a while.
Wow, I had no idea. Wow, so obviously you look very clean cut and healthy right now.
Thank you.
What happened back then that was the change for you?
Well, in my high school years, you know, I found myself in a really dark place, and I think it became apparent to my family that I needed help. I was reluctant, but they found a way to get me into a treatment program. Mm-hmm. I think that was at the age of 16, 17 or so. Mm-hmm. I was able to slowly but surely wean myself away from hard drugs, but that ultimately led to me beginning drinking alcohol. And so I went from one vice to the next. And so I'd say from the age of 17 up until I graduated from high school, through my early college years, I was bound, and I was an alcoholic. And so throughout my early years, that was my life.
Sounds like a very sad life.
I think there was definitely a lot of, I'd say turmoil, a lot of misguided youth. Really had no sense of direction, wasn't sure who I was, what I was, what I wanted to be, didn't have much of an outlook for my future. And all of that changed in 2003.
What happened in 2003?
In 2003, I lost my sister, Darcy. She committed suicide at the age of 18. It's my younger sister. I was living in Lawrence, Kansas at the time, and so being away from my two sisters, Darcy and Delcy, I think there's a brotherly responsibility, that some of us may feel. And so when all of this happened, there was definitely a lot of guilt, a lot of self-blame, because I was down in Kansas living my life, and all of this was taking place at home, and I wasn't aware. And so when this happened, I made the decision that I was going to put my family first. And the day that I got the call about my sister's death was the last day that I ever drank alcohol. And so
Wow.
It's a, I'm grateful for my sobriety. It's probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me. That said, it's also a very bittersweet thing, because every day that I'm sober is the exact same amount of time that my sister's been gone. And so I carry that with me.
Wow. So you had no idea she was going through her personal demons?
No.
Because you were away and he was younger.
And I was dealing with my own.
Your own demons?
Yep.
All right. Well, so that was the wake-up call, and then you stopped drinking cold turkey, but you started running, it sounds like. How did that happen?
Yeah, so my sister, she, all of this happened in March of 2003. I made the decision to move back home that summer. So I moved back in May.
To Iowa?
To Iowa. And still trying to figure things out. All I knew was that it was important to be closer to my family. And even then, I think there was a lot of internal conflict. We weren't sure how to respond to, such a tragedy. And so the summer turned into fall, and I think in September, October, I was upstairs one night, and for whatever reason, I thought about this old pair of shoes that I had, and I used to mow the lawn and, push mower. And so I thought about these shoes, and I think I still have these shoes. So I went downstairs, I put them on, and I went outside. When I started, I used to run at night, or I used to, in the very beginning, I would go outside at night because I was still, relatively overweight, still unhealthy, unsure of what I was doing, if I was doing it correctly.
And you did it by yourself, initially?
The physical part, yes. I think the spiritual side of things, the psychological side, it took me a while to realize that what I was doing with this running was healing. I didn't know that I was healing myself until years later. A friend of mine in 2005, 2006 or so, she convinced me to sign up for a half marathon. I didn't even know how far a half marathon was. But it sounded good, and it sounded like a challenge. Once I put the money down, it's like, all right, you're committed. And I hadn't run more than 7 miles until that day. But when I crossed that 7-mile marker, I literally gave myself a pat on the back, and I thought to myself, every step that you take from here on out is brand new. You've never seen this before, and keep going. And so 7 turned to 8, 9, 10. I think I got to the 11-mile marker, and I was really tired, beat up, worn down. And this little lady comes running by me, and she says, how are you feeling? You look kind of tired. It's like, yeah, I'm just ready for it to be over. And I told her, I had never gone past 7 miles until today. And she's like, yeah, me too. This is the farthest I've ever gone. And she said, well, let's make it to the finish line. They've got beer waiting for us at the end. So it was, like, I always find some humor in that, because we were running for both, we were both running for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And so, but I made it to the finish line, and my body just kind of fell apart, just, and my family was standing there waiting for me, and my grandma, she was, my grandma is like the most important person in my life. And I remember her scolding me after the half marathon because she saw me in such a pitiful state.
Okay.
And she was like, why do you want to do this? You need to stay away from this. You're only going to hurt yourself. I hope you're done. And, a young person, what do? I don't listen. So 6 months later, I run my first full marathon in St. Louis.
Oh, okay, you just ratcheted it up.
Yep. St. Louis was a really tough marathon for me. I didn't understand what tapering meant at the time. I thought I knew a little bit about it. But yeah, I made a lot of mistakes during that first marathon. That was in 2006. Yep. Okay. Spirit of St. Louis Marathon.
Okay.
And...
Well, you've been sober there for 3 years.
Yeah, yep.
So did you feel much better finishing the marathon than you did the half?
No. It humbled me. I think the last 4 or 5 miles were really, it made me understand what it was that I was doing out there and why I was doing it. One thing that I remember seeing out there was I think we were around mile 22 or so, 22, 23, and I'm kind of walking with my head down, feeling sorry for myself, like, oh, just get through it. And as I'm walking, all the people that I had passed up earlier in the run, they're trotting along casually. They still look like they've got a lot of energy. And all of a sudden, I hear this family. I hear the voice of young kids. And I turn to my side, and it's a group of children and a husband, and the mother is running the marathon. And I'm watching as one kid is holding the mom's hand, another kid is on the other side holding her other hand. The husband has his arm around her, and they're all cheering her on, they're all supporting her. And it was still to this day, like one of the most powerful images that I've ever seen, like out on any course. Just the love and support, that family structure, I think that's what I saw more than anything. They care about her, mm-hmm. And they're going to be there to help her get through it.
Mm-hmm. And that's something you wanted for yourself.
Definitely. Needless to say, I made it to mile 25, and my family, they're sitting comfortably under a tree. And so I stopped quickly to visit them, and my grandma, she says, we heard an ambulance earlier, we heard sirens. And we've been waiting. We thought that might have been for you. And so I crossed the finish line, 25 to 26, crossed the finish line. And again, my grandma and my family, they're like, haven't you had enough? This is brutal. And so... Even
though the stereotype is Indians are natural athletes and runners, they've done it since, since the dawn of time.
Yep. From that day forward, I continued to challenge myself.
You didn't give up. So where did that inner strength come from? Particularly, you're getting some negativity. You had to overcome that, plus you had to go deep inside of yourself.
Well, I remember one time a friend of mine had asked me, what are you running from? And I never really thought about it that way. And so I thought for a moment, and I finally told him, I've never considered it as running from something, more that I'm running towards something. The things that I endured as a young person, going through my struggles with addiction as a teenager into my early 20s. I guess what I discovered was that there was something inside of running that was just as addicting. Mm-hmm. but it was something positive.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was something good and healthy for me.
Mm-hmm. As you said, it was healing you.
Yeah, definitely.
And it took time, a lot of time.
Yep.
But you kept at it.
Yep.
So because you felt that healing thing, that's what motivated you to continue.
Yep.
What was the next challenge that made a difference?
I think the following year, 2007, I discovered Elite Racing's the Rock and Roll Series. And at that time, there were only 7 runs. And so I signed up for the challenge, the Rockstar Challenge. And so I guess once everything started coming together, you know, there was traveling involved, there was adventure, there was spirit. And, you know, I never imagined that I would be able to, you know, travel the country, you know, and run. You know, what I told myself later on was that there was actually no better way to see this country than by running through it. You know, going to certain cities, going to San Diego, going to San Jose, going to Nashville, Virginia Beach. You know, all of that year was an incredible year, and it turned out to be, it was actually my golden year, my 27th birthday, 2007. And so, yeah, I think there was a lot of strength taking place that year, and I felt really good about myself. I was really confident. I was running faster than I'd ever run before, and I was just happy. I think I ran about 7 or 8 marathons total that year.
1 year.
In 1 year.
It's a big jump from that 0.3
Yep.
to now you're running 7, 8 marathons a year.
Yep.
Relatively short time, a few years later.
It was unbelievable. I mean,
Wow. Okay. But let's talk about, you know, you wanted to honor your sister back in 2011, I guess?
yeah, in 2011.
So what happened then that you decided to take up the daunting challenge of doing 10 marathons in 30 days?
2011, I was serving on our tribe's tribal council. I was serving as a secretary, so the tribal council is our tribal government. And what I realized was that there was an opportunity there, you know, with the responsibility of being in a leadership role. You know, this may be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring attention to something that matters, that's serious, and something that was personal. And by that time, I had already done one challenge of running 5 marathons in 1 month. I accepted the challenge, you know, but I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And I typed into Google Native American suicide prevention. And the very first thing that had come up was the Center for Native American Youth. And so I clicked, read the website, and you know, it just struck a nerve with me. You know, it made sense. And I thought, I'm going to reach out to them. Told them who I was, what I had in mind.
The 10 marathons.
The 10 marathons in 30 days. And so,
there's a nice ring to it.
yeah. And so later that year, we made it formal, we made it official, we put a press release out that I was going to do this. And
Everybody said, Dirk who?
definitely.
So how did that go?
What I never told anybody was that I had actually fallen and sprained my ankle about 2.5 months before all of these marathons were supposed to take place.
Uh-oh.
I was actually doing really good that year. So the healing, when it came to healing, I ended up losing my speed, but I didn't lose much of my distance. And so I just kind of crossed my fingers, prayed, and went out there and
Took it a little easier.
yeah, and got it done. The 10 marathons was extremely difficult.
I would imagine. Who managed the logistics? I mean, first you got to find the 10.
Yep.
And you wanted it relatively close. You didn't have to travel crazy.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of brain power and logistics to get
Yep.
that ready. Did you do that?
I did that.
You did that too. Well, that's
Yep.
another nerve-wracking.
Yeah, driving, making sure that you were recovering for the next one.
Did you have a crew that went with you?
For the most part, it was me on my own.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. people would be there waiting for me.
Because to the charity.
Yeah, I mean, and people were aware of what was taking place, and so I made a lot of new friends along the way.
Okay.
You know, allies.
Okay.
But I think I was ready to give up at Marathon 6. I was ready to call it a day.
What kept you going?
There was this self-defeating voice saying, you know, I think you could probably wrap things up. You know, I don't think people would be too upset if you stopped at 6.
Yeah. So how did you put the kibosh on that?
Another voice came in and said, you know what? You need to shut up with this crap and get out there and get it done.
All right, I like that voice.
And so we carried on.
You carried on, you and that positive voice.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the idea was to, besides raise awareness, because, probably reporters would cover you and say, this is number 6, how do you feel? You know, you tell your story. Was it a fundraising portion involved too?
Yeah, we had actually raised money for the Center for Native American Youth. I think ultimately, though, it was, we were out to deliver a message. You know, we wanted people to be aware that, you know, the health disparages in our communities are serious, and there are people who are taking them serious. You know, everyone has their own way of bringing attention to issues, and this was mine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mentioned it at the beginning. One of my guests, he is Navajo, and her sister, Josie, heard about your quest.
Yep.
And she helped in some way to support that cause.
Yeah, Josie is actually part of the Center for Native American Youth.
Oh, so you know Josie?
Yeah, yep.
Oh, how a small world. Excellent. Well, okay, now jumping to right here, you're here because you're going to be running the New York City Marathon.
Yep.
Is there any special reason to picking New York?
This weekend, the New York City Marathon is Sunday, and it's the 45th running of the New York City Marathon. This marathon for me is actually my 45th marathon, and so it just seems all too fitting that, you know,
Kismet.
Yeah.
Or did you plan it that way, just coincidental? Oh, look at that, the 45th.
You know, this is actually my first time applying for the New York City Marathon, so I don't know how that luck of the draw worked out.
Well, you did do the lottery? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I mean, very first time I tried to get in, here we go.
Well, it is Kismet. And I think something special is happening.
Yeah, I've been invited and accepted to represent the Meskwaki Nation during the opening ceremonies.
Okay, so you'll be parading with your flag of the nation.
Our tribal flag will be present, and
great.
I'm very happy to have that happen.
Excellent.
After New York. I haven't planned that far, honestly. Right now, it's kind of like taking it one day at a time. Let me get through this, and then we'll find out what happens next. I would like to one day, you know, I think just like anybody else, Boston, you know, and I'd really like to get my 50th marathon. You know, I'm at 45, but I'm already looking towards 50.
Well, you probably want to do 50 at the 50th state.
New York should be my 22nd or 23rd state, so I'm on target to get it at some point.
Yeah, Hawaii would be at the 50th state.
Yeah, I think
a lot of people do Hawaii for their 50th.
Oh, okay.
Either their 50th state or their 50th marathon, or 50 is involved somehow. They're either age 50, whatever.
Let me tell you a story. I was invited one time to visit an elder in my community by his son, and so I bagged up my laptop, and I had some tobacco with me as an offering, you know, to pay respect to this elderly man. And so I sit with him in his kitchen, and one thing I had asked him was whether or not I could record our conversation on my laptop. And he kind of scolded me, and he said, you know, back when I was your age, you know, we didn't have those things. We paid attention, we listened, you know, and that's how we remembered. And so he kind of gave me that look and said, you can use that if you want to. I'm just letting you know how I feel about it. And so needless to say, I put the laptop away and gave him my
undivided attention.
Yeah, I gave him my respect. And so we talked for about an hour and a half or so. And as I'm about to walk away, you know, it's getting dark. You know, I'm trying to leave, and he says, "Hey, I want to tell you something." but there's this dance called the fancy dance. And what I'm told is that the way that contemporary fancy dancing looks like now was originated in Tama by Meskwakis. And he just so happened to be one of these men and who originated that style, who developed that style. Mm-hmm. And so he's telling me the story about how he became a champion dancer. When I was out in the arena dancing, I would get tired, I would get hot, and I would put my head down and I'd want to stop. And when I would look down, I would see my shadow. And what I come to realize was that my shadow was a part of me, and my shadow wants to dance as well. And so what I would try to do was outdance my shadow and trick him. And that's how I taught myself all these moves. And that's how I became a champion.
Interesting.
He says, I'm telling you this because, so the next time you're out there running, you know, and you look down and you want to quit, you know, look at your shadow. You know, I'm sure that your shadow wants to run too. So see if you can outrun your shadow.
Excellent, excellent. A different take of me and my shadow.
Yep.
Since you're such an inspirational guy now, are you giving back by speaking to our youth, to Native American youth?
Yeah. Although I'm no longer in my community's tribal government, I still serve on the board of advisors for the Center for Native American Youth, and I'm also part of the Iowa Commission on Native American Affairs. And so both of these organizations are definitely geared towards addressing Native youth issues, you know, making sure that Native youth are a priority. And and with that said, I also, occasionally get invited to, other communities to tell this story, to share this story. The message that I'm trying to send is that there's always a choice. I never gave up, and although it was trying, there was a lot of challenges, there were plenty of obstacles, I kept going, I kept pushing, I found strength, and it took time, it took practice and patience. And I think just as, just like a marathon, endurance,
And there's help now that's available that maybe wasn't available to you, or you weren't aware of it.
Yep.
So you want to make them aware. Call that 800 number.
Yep.
Reach out to somebody because you can get help.
Yep, there's always help. Don't ever think that you're alone, because you're not.
I think that's the most important message, that you can get help, that you're not alone.
Yep.
Listen to that note. Thank you so much for coming in, Derek.
Happy to be here.